The Luna ring lay beside Serena Vale's hand. Its white moonstone glowed against the black mourning veil spread across the strategy table, while a crystal wine glass, darkened by a thin smear of blood along its rim, stood beside a medical file, stamped with the royal seal. Royal heir confirmed. Elara Voss stopped inside the doorway. Beyond the closed walls, hundreds of Stormfang wolves waited in the great hall for the renewal oath. The musicians had already begun the ceremonial hymn. In less than 10 minutes, Adrian Cross was supposed to place that ring on Elara's finger again and swear before the 12 packs that she remained his Luna. Instead, Serena wore his white shirt beneath her mourning cloak. Adrian stood by the fireplace with one hand braced against the mantel. His dark hair was disordered, and a healing cut marked his lower lip. "Elara," he said. Her mate bond surged toward him before her pride could stop it. It carried confusion, guilt, and something scorched by alcohol. Elara's gaze moved from his face to Serena. "How long?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "I entered Serena's chambers shortly after midnight." "And left?" "This morning." Serena lowered her eyes, gathering the veil around herself. Every movement was delicate enough to invite protection. "We were grieving, Rowan," she whispered. "Neither of us intended." "Do not use your dead husband to finish that sentence," Elara said. Serena flinched. Adrian stepped forward. "My memories are broken. There was wine. I remember speaking with her. I remember." His voice roughened. "I remember kissing her." The truth struck harder because he did not hide from it. Elara's fingers curled at her sides. She did not ask whether he loved Serena. Love had not stopped him from crossing the corridor. Love had not returned the ring to Elara's hand. A council bell sounded. Adrian looked toward the doors. "The medical examination claims the child carries my blood signature." Serena pressed a protective palm over her abdomen. Elara stared at the gesture. 18 months earlier, she had held her own stomach while healers carried away the daughter she had never been allowed to name publicly. Serena knew that. The great hall fell silent when Elara entered. 300 wolves stood beneath the silver banners of Stormfang. Moon Counselor Lucien Vane waited beside the throne, holding the medical file as though it were sacred law. Adrian followed Elara onto the raised dais. Serena remained one step behind him. Vane lifted his voice. "Under Widow Sanctuary, Lady Serena cannot be publicly questioned for 30 days. Until the child's bloodline is confirmed, the stability of the royal succession must be protected." Elara looked at Adrian. "And what does protection require?" His expression hardened into the mask of an alpha king. "The Luna ring must be placed in council custody." A murmur rolled through the hall. "Custody?" Elara asked. "For 30 days, Adrian said. "This prevents challenges from Rowan's soldiers and gives us time to investigate." Serena's mouth trembled. "I never wanted your place." Elara finally looked at her. "No. You only entered my chambers, wore my mate's clothing, carried his supposed heir, and stood behind him while he removed my authority." Serena's softness vanished for one heartbeat. Then she said, "Stormfang has waited long enough for a living heir." Pain flashed beneath Elara's ribs. Adrian turned sharply. "Serena," but he was too late. Elara saw every face that dropped in shame. She saw Noah Reed clench his fists beside the guards. She saw Vane watching her, waiting for tears, rage, or surrender. She gave him none. Instead, she walked to the council table and opened the leather volume of ancient pack law. "Crownless choice," she said. Adrian went still. Elara drew the ceremonial silver blade across her palm. Blood welled bright and clean. She pressed her hand beneath the forgotten statute and wrote her name across the severance notice. "Elara, stop." It was the first time Adrian's voice sounded frightened. She lifted the Luna ring. "For 8 years I carried this pack through famine, border disputes, and war. Tonight, you asked me to surrender my dignity so your throne would remain comfortable. I asked for time. You asked me to stand quietly while another woman occupied my place." She set the ring before him. "You may keep your crown, Adrian Cross. You may keep your counsel, your excuses, and the heir you were too afraid to question." Her bleeding hand closed around the severance paper. "But you will not keep me as your second choice." Elara descended from the dais. No command followed her. Under crownless choice, even an alpha king could not order her to turn around. Behind her, Serena reached for the ring. The instant her fingers touched the moonstone, blue fire erupted across her palm. She screamed. When the flames vanished, a blackened symbol remained, burned into her skin. The lost crest of House Asterion. Rain struck Elara's face before the gates of Stormfang closed behind her. She did not look back. The severance paper was folded inside her coat, still damp with her blood. Each step away from the palace stretched the mate bond tighter across her chest, a living cord pulled through bone. By the time she reached the cedar road, pain drove a sharp breath from her lungs. Adrian felt it too. Far behind her, inside the great hall, his hand had gone to his sternum the moment she crossed the outer courtyard. The bond carried no words, only distance, hurt, and a terrible finality. He almost followed. Then Serena screamed again as healers examined the black crest burned into her palm, and Counselor Vane ordered the doors sealed. Elara kept walking. The rain thickened, washing blood from her hand and turning the road beneath her boots into black mud. Her wolf paced inside her, confused by the absence of Adrian's presence. Mate. The instinct was not a thought. It was hunger, memory, and pain. No, Elara whispered. A violent spasm tore beneath her ribs. She stumbled against a tree and coughed into her palm. When she lowered it, blood glistened across her skin. Hoofbeats approached from behind. 3 royal guards emerged through the rain, wearing Stormfang silver. Captain Oren raised one hand. Lady Elara, that is not my title anymore. King Adrian ordered us to escort you back. Elara straightened, despite the pain in her chest. Did he use the word order? Oren hesitated. He said, you are unwell. I am protected under crownless choice, until the tribunal rules. The forest is not safe. Neither was the palace. The youngest guard looked away. Oren dismounted. Please, the king is asking for time. Elara removed the severance paper from her coat. Blood had dried across the ancient claws, but the Moon Council seal remained visible. Read the final line. Oren's eyes moved over the parchment. No alpha, council, or bonded mate may compel the claimant to return. The rain filled the silence between them. Elara stepped past him. If Adrian wants to honor one law tonight, let it be that one. None of the guards followed. The neutral boundary appeared near dawn, marked by 2 white stones and a dead oak split by lightning. Elara crossed between them. The bond snapped against the limit of its reach. She dropped to her knees. Pain flooded her body so completely that the forest disappeared. Her vision narrowed to rainwater, mud, and the blood dripping from her mouth. Her wolf gave a broken howl inside her chest. For one terrible second, Elara wanted Adrian, not the king who had asked for her ring, the man who once carried her across a frozen river after she injured her ankle, the man who had slept beside her on the floor outside the healer's room after their daughter died. That memory was the cruelest part of leaving. Elara pressed both hands into the mud and forced herself upright. She would not confuse what he had once been with what he had chosen to become. The neutral moon sanctuary stood 2 miles beyond the border, hidden among silver birch trees. Its stone walls bore no pack crest. No alpha command could be used within them. Healer Mara Quinn opened the door before Elara could knock. Mara was broad-shouldered, gray-haired, and unimpressed by royal titles. You smell like blood, rain, and a terrible decision, she said. A necessary one. Those are usually the worst kind. Inside, Mara cut away Elara's wet clothing and examined the bruising spreading beneath her ribs. She poured bitter herbs between Elara's lips while bond fever shook her body. Then Mara's fingers paused over the old scar below Elara's left rib. This did not heal properly. It was from the miscarriage. Mara's expression changed. She pressed a thin silver instrument against the scar. A dark line appeared beneath Elara's skin. When did this happen? 18 months ago. Did your healer test you for silver poisoning? Elara stared at her. There was no poisoning. My body failed. Mara's eyes hardened. Bodies do not leave refined silver residue in scar tissue. The words entered Elara slowly. For 18 months, she had carried guilt like a stone beneath her heart. Mara drew a vial of blood. I need 3 days to confirm it. Before Elara could answer, a moon scribe entered with a sealed notice. The message bore Adrian's royal crest. Elara opened it. She was accused of abandoning Stormfang during a succession crisis and stealing confidential military records. If she returned voluntarily, the council would grant mercy, provided she recognized Serena's protection and surrendered all claims to Luna authority. Elara held the paper over the sanctuary candle. The flame consumed Adrian's name first. She kept only the broken royal seal. As the ashes fell, blood from her cut palm touched the moonstone pendant around her neck. The stone clicked open. Inside was a sliver of black metal engraved with coordinates and 4 words in General Rowan's hand. "Bring this to Night Vale, alone." At that same moment, beyond the sanctuary windows, a tall figure stepped from the trees. He wore no Stormfang silver. In his gloved hand rested the missing half of the Asterian seal. The stranger stopped beyond the sanctuary threshold. He was taller than Adrian, broad through the shoulders, dressed in a black military coat without jewels or ceremonial armor. Silver threaded his dark hair at the temples. His eyes were not the gold of an alpha. They burned copper red. He opened his gloved hand. The broken half of the Asterian seal rested against his palm. "Elara Voss," he said. "Not Luna. Not Adrian's mate. Just her name." Healer Mara moved between them. "No king has authority inside this sanctuary." "I know the law," the stranger replied. "That is why I waited outside." Elara's fingers closed around the black metal hidden inside her pendant. "You are Cassian Draven." The Lycan King inclined his head once. "General Rowan Vale asked me to meet the bearer of that pendant if he failed to return from the northern campaign." Rowan was Adrian's general. Why would he trust the king of an enemy territory? Because he no longer trusted the people seated beside Adrian. The answer landed heavily. Cassian placed his half of the seal on a stone table and stepped back, allowing Elara to choose whether to approach. She fitted her piece against his. The 2 halves joined with a quiet metallic click. Thin lunar markings appeared across the surface, forming the outline of a wolf with its head bowed beneath a 7-pointed moon. Mara inhaled sharply. The crest of House Asterian. Elara looked at Cassian. "What did Rowan give you?" "A ledger." "Then bring it here." "It is in Night Vale." Suspicion hardened her voice. "Convenient." Cassian did not react to the insult. Rowan believed the ledger exposed a weapons network operating through Stormfang's military stores. He also believed only you could decode it. "Why me?" he did not say. A horn sounded outside. Once, then twice. Cassian turned toward the forest. The calm in his face vanished. A Lycan soldier ran through the birch trees. "Your Majesty, the Eastern refugee convoy collapsed near the river. 20 are unconscious. More are convulsing." Mara seized her medical bag. Cassian looked at Elara. "Stay here." She was already reaching for her coat. "No, you are suffering bond fever, and your people may be suffering from poisoned supplies bearing Stormfang marks." His eyes narrowed. "You assume too much. I recognize the scent." At the riverbank, wagons stood abandoned among dozens of sick Lycans. Children shivered beneath wet blankets, while soldiers dragged sacks of grain away from the cooking fires. A black wolf crest had been stamped onto every sack. "Stormfang." Captain Tessa Hale strode toward Elara, her hand resting on her sword. "Your kingdom sent us poison." "My kingdom accused me of treason before sunrise," Elara replied. "I doubt it is taking my orders." Tessa's eyes flashed, but Cassian raised one hand. "Let her look." Elara knelt beside an open sack. The grain smelled faintly sweet beneath the rot. "Do not burn it," she said. Tessa frowned. "Why?" "The smoke will spread the toxin." Elara rubbed the stamped seal with her thumb. Black wax flaked away. "The wolf faces east on Stormfang's official supply seal. This one faces west." "A reversed mold," Cassian said. "A counterfeit made from an impression." She opened the wagon ledger and traced the route with one finger. These supplies did not come through a military warehouse. The axle mud contains white clay. There is only one white clay road near this river, the abandoned quarry trail. Cassian immediately understood. They bypassed the inspection gate. Elara nodded. "Separate everyone who ate the porridge from those who only handled the sacks. Wash the children with cold water. Mara needs charcoal, salt, and moonroot." Tessa hesitated. Cassian's voice dropped. "Do exactly as she says." For 2 hours, Elara moved among the sick, despite the ache twisting through her bond. She organized treatment lines, marked contaminated wagons, and redirected Night Vale's clean food reserves before panic became violence. By dusk, no one had died. Tessa handed Elara a cup of water. It was not an apology, but it was the beginning of one. Cassian watched Elara steady a frightened child, with blood still dried beneath her own fingernails. Rowan had called her the mind holding Stormfang together. Cassian had thought it loyalty speaking. Now he knew Rowan had been stating a fact. That night, inside Night Vale's war chamber, Cassian placed a black leather ledger beneath the joined Asterian seal. Elara pressed her bleeding palm against the cover. Silver writing spread across the first page. Payments, weapons, false orders. Then one transfer stopped her breath. A payment from Counselor Lycan Vane to Serena Vale, dated 3 months before Rowan's death. Elara turned the final page. Across it, Rowan had written one warning in blood. If I am dead, do not let my widow near the Luna's medicine. By sunrise, every general in Night Vale wanted war. They stood around the blackstone table in Cassian's war chamber, their voices hard with fury. 3 refugee camps had received counterfeit Stormfang grain. 2 northern roads were blocked, and the eastern merchants had withdrawn their caravans after rumors of poisoned cargo spread across the border. We cross Obsidian Ridge before they organize, General Darius said. Burn their supply forts and force Adrian Cross to answer. That would prove exactly what the conspirators want, Elara said. The chamber fell silent. She stood at the far end of the table wearing a borrowed gray coat. Bond fever had left shadows beneath her eyes, but her hands remained steady over the maps. Darius looked at Cassian. Why is a Stormfang exile speaking in a Lycan war council? Because she prevented 27 of our people from dying yesterday, Cassian replied. Continue, strategist Voss. Elara moved 3 carved markers away from Stormfang and placed them along the human railway. Night Vale does not need Stormfang's roads. The human city of Harrogate transports coal through neutral territory. Their southern line passes within 12 miles of your western stores. Clee, they will not trade with Lycans, Darius said. They will trade with anyone who can keep their factories running. Elara tapped Night Vale's iron mines. Offer refined ore at a fixed winter rate. In return, demand grain, medicine, and rail access under the Neutral Commerce Act. Stormfang cannot legally interfere without admitting it caused the blockade. Cassian studied the route. And if Harrogate refuses? They will not. Their eastern mine collapsed 2 months ago. Tessa's brow rose. How do you know that? I read the trade reports, Adrian considered too boring for counsel. A faint smile touched Cassian's mouth. By noon, his envoys were riding west instead of soldiers riding east. Later, Tessa found Elara in the Blackstone courtyard. You think quickly at a table, the captain said, tossing her a wooden training blade. Tables do not fight back. Elara caught it. Around them, Lycan warriors slowed to watch. Tessa attacked first. She was faster and far stronger. Her blade struck with enough force to numb Elara's arm. Elara retreated twice, watching Tessa's feet, knee breathing, and the slight drop of her right shoulder before every high strike. On the 4th attack, Elara stepped inside the swing instead of away from it. She hooked Tessa's wrist, turned beneath her arm, and used the captain's momentum to drive her toward the courtyard wall. Tessa recovered instantly, but Elara kicked loose gravel beneath her rear foot. Tessa slipped. Elara locked the wooden blade beneath her chin. The courtyard went quiet. You cannot overpower a Lycan, Tessa said, breathing hard. No, Elara replied. But I can let one overpower herself. Tessa stared at her, then laughed once. From the balcony, Cassian watched Elara lower the weapon and offer Tessa her hand. She did not humiliate defeated opponents. She turned them into allies. That quality was rarer than strength. A metallic hiss cut through the courtyard. Cassian moved before anyone shouted. He crossed the distance in a blur and slammed into Elara. They struck the stones together as a silver bolt buried itself in his shoulder. His growl shook the windows. Rooftop! Tessa yelled. Guards rushed toward the western tower. Elara caught Cassian's coat as he tried to rise. Stay down. It was one shooter. No. She had seen sunlight flash twice. Elara looked toward the bell tower. A second figure crouched behind the carved moon crest, aiming directly at Cassian's back. She dragged him sideways. The second bolt shattered against the stones where his heart had been. Cassian shifted partially, claws tearing through his gloves, but Elara was already moving. She seized the fallen training blade and hurled it upward. It struck the assassin's wrist. Tessa reached the roof moments later and brought the attacker down alive. Inside the infirmary, Elara cut Cassian's coat away from the wound. Black veins spread around the silver bolt. "This will hurt," she said. "Most useful things do." She pulled the bolt free. Cassian's hand closed around the edge of the table, but he made no sound. His copper-red eyes remained fixed on her face. "You saved me," he said. "You saved me first. That does not create a debt." "Good. I dislike owing kings." Tessa entered, dragging the conscious assassin between two guards. She dropped a metal object onto the table. A Stormfang royal seal. Elara's stomach tightened. Cassian stepped toward the prisoner. "Did Alpha Adrian order this?" The assassin spat blood onto the floor. "No." His smile was broken and cruel. "The order came from the Luna's room." The first food riot began before sunrise. Adrian stood on the palace balcony as royal guards forced apart 200 wolves fighting outside the northern storehouse. Mothers clutched empty ration baskets. Elderly pack members shouted that flour had not reached their districts in 9 days. Behind him, the council chamber doors opened. Serena entered wearing a pale blue gown designed to hide the bandage around her burned palm. "The merchants are punishing us because Elara fled to Night Vale," she said. Adrian turned from the balcony. "The merchants withdrew because you canceled 6 winter contracts. They were agreements made under her authority. They were agreements feeding my people." Serena's expression tightened. Since the failed coronation, the softness she displayed in public had become harder to maintain in private. "You cannot expect me to govern while every document still bears her name." The contracts bore the Stormfang seal, and the pack associates them with her. Adrian looked toward the council table. The Luna ring rested inside a glass case. 3 healers had examined it, but none could explain the black Asterion mark burned into Serena's skin. Each time she approached the ring, its moonstone darkened. She followed his gaze. "It is only reacting because Elara poisoned it against me." "The ring cannot be poisoned." "Then perhaps she cursed it." Adrian's wolf stirred with sudden anger. "Do not accuse her without evidence." Serena stared at him. "You had no difficulty doing that when the council accused her of stealing military records." The words struck their target. Before Adrian could answer, Beta Noah Reed entered with a stack of reports. 2 border packs have refused the winter levy," Noah said. "They claim the succession crisis voids their oath until Stormfang has a recognized Luna." Serena lifted her chin. "Then Adrian must recognize me." Noah's eyes moved to her bandaged hand. "The ring appears to disagree." She left before either man could stop her. Adrian remained motionless until the doors closed. "What else?" he asked. Noah hesitated. "A message from our Western spies." He placed a photograph on the table. Elara stood beside Cassian Draven outside Night Vale's infirmary. Cassian's coat rested across her shoulders. Her hand was raised toward him, touching the bandage beneath his collar. Adrian's claws broke through his fingertips. "What happened?" "An assassination attempt." Cassian took a silver bolt meant for her. Elara identified a second shooter and saved his life. Adrian stared at the photograph. He had known jealousy as irritation before. This was different. It was a feral pressure inside his skull, sharpened by the knowledge that he had no lawful right to summon her home. "She is aiding an enemy king." "She is saving refugees," Noah said. "And according to neutral law, she has violated nothing." Adrian's gaze snapped toward him. Noah did not look away. For years, Elara had stood where Noah stood now, offering truths Adrian disliked but needed. He had mistaken her competence for permanence. The palace felt her absence everywhere. Unanswered trade letters covered her desk. Grain spoiled because no one remembered her rotation system. 3 council factions fought over responsibilities she had once handled before breakfast. Adrian looked again at Cassian's coat around her shoulders. "Find out who authorized the attack." "I already started." Noah led him below the palace into the security archive. A young technician sat before 6 flickering screens. On the central monitor, grainy footage showed Adrian entering Serena's chambers on the night of Rowan's memorial. The public version skipped directly to Dawn. Noah inserted a recovered storage drive. This file was deleted from the primary system. The image jumped backward. A servant wearing Vane's household crest entered Serena's room carrying a sealed bottle of wine. Minutes later, Serena poured its contents into another decanter. Adrian watched himself arrive. He remembered the guilt, the loneliness, Serena crying against his chest. He remembered touching her face. Then he saw himself kiss her. The servant had not yet brought the altered wine to his hand. Adrian closed his eyes. The drug explained the missing hours. It did not explain why he had entered her bedroom or kissed her before drinking. "I chose the first betrayal," he said. Noah remained silent. The footage continued. After Adrian collapsed, a hooded healer entered the room. Serena held his arm, while the healer drew blood into a royal testing vial. "That is how they created the blood signature," Noah said. Adrian's eyes turned gold. "Find the healer." "We did." Noah placed a medical report beneath the frozen image. "The healer was found dead this morning." Adrian read the blood analysis twice. "The child is not mine." "No." "Then Rowan's?" Noah slowly shook his head. "The sample matches neither of you." On the screen, Serena looked directly toward the hidden camera while someone stepped from the shadows behind her. Counselor Lycan Vane. The medical file arrived at Night Vale, sealed in gray wax. Elara knew the answer before Mara Quinn broke it. The healer stood across from her in Cassian's private study, rainwater darkening the shoulders of her traveling cloak. On the desk lay 3 blood reports, a medicine ledger from Stormfang's royal infirmary, and the vial Mara had taken at the Neutral Moon Sanctuary. Cassian remained near the window. He had healed from the silver bolt, though stiffness still pulled at his injured shoulder whenever he moved too quickly. Mara opened the first report. "The residue in your scar is refined silver suspended in moonroot oil," she said. It was administered repeatedly, in small doses. Elara stared at the page. "No. I drank medicine for the pregnancy." "Yes." The single word emptied the room of air. Mara turned the medicine ledger toward her. Most entries bore the signature of Stormfang's senior healer. But 6 weeks before Elara lost her daughter, the supplier code changed. The replacement authorization carried Serena Vale's household seal. "She told the infirmary she was acting on Rowan's request," Mara said. "The original healer who approved it disappeared after the miscarriage." Elara's hand drifted beneath her ribs. For 18 months, she had remembered the blood, the healer's lowered eyes, and Adrian sitting beside her bed with both hands wrapped around hers. She had blamed her body for failing their child. Her body had fought to save her. Someone else had killed the life inside it. A sound left her throat, too quiet to be called a sob. Cassian took 1 step forward, then stopped. He did not touch her. Elara's eyes remained on the ledger. "How long have you known?" Mara looked toward Cassian. His expression hardened. "I knew Rowan suspected interference in your medical care." Elara lifted her head. "You knew?" "I knew he was investigating Serena and Lycan Vane. I did not know he had proof of poisoning. But you knew he believed I carried Asterian blood." Cassian did not lie. "Yes." Anger moved through her more cleanly than grief. "You brought me into your kingdom knowing my blood could activate the tribunal. I brought you because Rowan trusted you. You allowed me to discover the rest piece by piece. Because your bloodline belongs to you," Cassian said. "Not to Rowan. Not to me. If I had told you without proof, I would have sounded like another king offering you a crown in exchange for obedience." He crossed to the desk and placed the black war ledger beside her. "The ledger is yours. The seal is yours. Night Vale's gates will open if you choose to leave tonight." Elara searched his face for calculation. She found none. That frightened her more than manipulation would have. "Would you let me take evidence capable of changing the balance between our kingdoms?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because if I must imprison you to keep your trust, then I never had it." Silence settled between them. Elara closed her eyes. The grief inside her was too large for anger alone to contain. "Stay," she whispered. Cassian's breath changed. He came closer only after she held out her hand. His fingers closed around hers not as a king claiming a subject, but as a man accepting permission. That night, they descended beneath the obsidian citadel into the Moon Archive. The chamber had not been opened in 4 centuries. Ancient symbols covered the circular floor, surrounding a stone basin carved with the crest of House Asterion. Elara placed the joined seal inside it. Nothing happened. Then she drew the ceremonial blade across her palm. Her blood struck the stone. Silver light exploded through the chamber. The crest beneath her feet awakened, and the scar under her ribs burned as if recognizing an older wound. Words appeared along the walls, in a language Elara had never studied, yet somehow understood. Witness, blood, judgment. The air above the basin rippled. General Rowan Vale appeared within the light. His image was pale and translucent, dressed in the torn armor he had worn during his final campaign. Blood covered one side of his face. "If this memory has opened," he said, "then I am dead, and Elara Voss has found the truth." Elara moved closer. Rowan explained how Lycan Vane had moved silver weapons through military warehouses, forged Adrian's orders, and paid Serena for access to the royal infirmary. He had confronted his wife 2 days before his final mission. She had denied everything. Then someone delivered his travel route directly to the enemy. "I divided the evidence, because no single throne could be trusted with it," Rowan said. Cassian received the ledger. "Elara carries the blood capable of summoning judgment." The symbols around her feet brightened. Elara understood what they offered. Not revenge. The right to compel every accused ruler, counselor, healer, and witness to stand before the Moon Tribunal. She pressed her bleeding palm onto the Asterian crest. "I invoke the great trial." A bell rang deep beneath the mountain. Its sound traveled through Night Vale, across the neutral lands, and into every pack bound by ancient law. Rowan's memory began to fade. Then the image shifted. He stood inside Serena's private chamber, staring at her with grief rather than anger. "My wife knows I discovered the father of her child." The Luna coronation bells rang, while the Moon Tribunal summons was still burning across the sky. Adrian stood at the entrance of the Great Hall, staring at the silver light spreading over Stormfang's towers. Every ancient bell in the kingdom had answered Elara's blood. The great trial had been invoked, yet Serena was already walking toward the throne. She wore a white ceremonial gown instead of mourning black. A bandage covered the Asterian mark on her palm, and Counselor Lycan Vane walked beside her carrying the Luna ring inside a glass box. "This ceremony is suspended," Adrian said. The nobles turned. Serena stopped at the foot of the dais. "You approved it yesterday, before I learned the royal blood report was falsified." Fear crossed her face, but only for an instant. Then she placed a hand over her stomach. "You are questioning your own child, because Elara called a trial from a Lycan fortress? The child is not mine." A murmur swept through the hall. Vane stepped forward. "The independent test has not been verified. It was verified by 3 healers outside your authority." Serena's voice softened. "Adrian, do not let guilt make you destroy the only heir Stormfang may ever have." His wolf recoiled at the cruelty hidden inside the words. "You will submit to another examination. And if I refuse, then Widow Sanctuary will not shield you from suspicion." Serena looked toward Rowan's former officers standing near the pillars. She knew exactly where their loyalty had once belonged. "If I am left without protection," she said, "General Vale's soldiers will know who dishonored his widow." The threat settled over the hall. Vane opened the glass box. "The kingdom cannot remain without a Luna, while foreign forces gather at our border. Let the ring decide." Adrian moved to stop him. Serena was faster. She tore away the bandage and closed her burned hand around the Luna ring. The moonstone turned black. Blue fire exploded between her fingers. Serena screamed and fell against the altar. The ring struck the floor, leaving a trail of smoke across the white marble. When she lifted her hand, the black Asterion crest had spread from her palm to her wrist. The assembled wolves backed away. Adrian descended the dais. "The ceremony is over." Serena stared up at him, hatred breaking through the helpless mask she had worn for months. "You will regret humiliating me." "No," Adrian said. "I regret that I believed you." Hours later, Noah Reed entered Serena's private sitting room, carrying the blood report. She stood beside the window, her burned hand submerged in a silver basin. "The child belongs to Lycan Vane," Noah said. Serena did not turn. "You should be careful making accusations against a pregnant widow. I am not accusing you. I am offering you one chance to confess before the tribunal arrives." She laughed quietly. Then she faced him. "What has loyalty earned you, Noah? Adrian will lose his throne. Elara will marry the Lycan King, and you will remain a servant cleaning up another ruler's failures." She opened a drawer and placed a property deed on the table. "Support the child's claim. You will become regent of the Eastern Pax." Noah looked at the deed. Then he tore it in half. Serena's eyes went cold. A door opened behind him. The attacker moved without warning. Noah turned as a silver dagger drove into his right arm. He struck the man across the throat, crashed through a side table, and pulled a recording stone from beneath his coat. Its red light continued blinking. Serena saw it. "Take it," she shouted. Noah threw himself through the window. Glass tore across his face as he fell into the garden below. He landed badly, but kept hold of the stone, while guards poured from the eastern corridor. Inside the room, Serena seized Vane by the coat. "You said Adrian would never investigate. You said you could control him." He saw the footage. Vane's expression changed. "Then we move tonight." Serena pressed both hands over her stomach. "And the child? My son will still inherit Stormfang." Beyond the half-closed door, Adrian stood motionless in the shadows. He had followed Noah after seeing the blood on the corridor floor. Now he heard Serena say, "Elara's poisoned medicine created the heir crisis. Rowan's death gave me the army. We did everything you asked." Adrian's claws cut into his palms. Vane lowered his voice. "Before moonrise, the Great Hall will belong to us. Announce that Adrian has been corrupted by Lycan influence. Rowan's officers will arrest him, and Elara will be executed as a traitor when she returns." A war bell thundered across Stormfang. Then another answered from the outer wall. A guard shouted from the courtyard, "The tribunal delegation is at the northern gate." Adrian stepped to the window. Beneath the silver summons, Elara rode at the head of the procession, carrying the Asterian seal. Beside her flew the black banner of the Lycan King. The northern gates of Stormfang opened without celebration. Elara rode beneath the silver light of the tribunal summons, the Asterian seal fastened at her throat. Cassian traveled beside her under Night Vale's black banner, while Captain Tessa, Healer Mara, and 6 moon scribes followed behind them. No Lycan soldiers crossed the gate. Cassian had left his army beyond the border so no one could call the great trial an invasion. Stormfang wolves filled the courtyard. Many looked exhausted. Some wore the hollow expressions of people who had gone hungry while their leaders fought over a crown. When Elara dismounted, an elderly woman near the fountain dropped to her knees. "My Luna." Others began to follow. "Stand," Elara said. Her voice carried across the courtyard with the authority they remembered. The wolves froze. "I did not return as Stormfang's Luna. I came as a witness of House Asterian." The words hurt more than several of them expected. Adrian stood at the top of the palace steps. 3 months had changed him. His face was leaner, his eyes sleepless, and his royal coat hung open, as if even fastening it required more certainty than he possessed. The mate bond recognized him instantly. Pain tore through Elara's chest. Adrian felt the answering wound and gripped the stone railing. His wolf surged toward her, frantic with recognition. But Elara did not move. Cassian did not touch her. He simply stood near enough that she could choose him if she needed support. Adrian noticed. That quiet restraint wounded him more deeply than possession would have. Before the tribunal assembled, Adrian asked Elara to meet him in the memorial garden. The garden held no guards and no counselors. White flowers grew beneath the stone, bearing the name of the daughter they had lost. Elara stopped several feet from him. Adrian held a permanent severance document in both hands. "I know about the medicine," he said. Her face remained still, but the moonstone pendant at her throat trembled with her breathing. "I know Serena helped poison you. I know Vane used our child's death to create a succession crisis." "Our daughter," Elara corrected. "She was not a political failure." "No." Adrian's voice broke. "She was our daughter." For one moment, grief stood between them without a throne, a title, or another woman's shadow. Then Adrian lowered his eyes. "The drug explains why I lost the rest of that night. It does not excuse why I entered Serena's room. It does not excuse the kiss, and nothing excuses what I did to you afterward." Elara watched him place the severance paper on the memorial stone. "I asked you to surrender your dignity because I was afraid of losing control. You lost me instead." "Yes." He cut his palm with the ceremonial silver blade and pressed his blood beneath his name. The mate bond tightened violently. Adrian's knees nearly buckled, but he kept his hand against the parchment. "I release every claim," he said. "Not because you have chosen Cassian, not because the tribunal commands it, because I should have protected your freedom before I needed forgiveness." Elara added her blood. The bond snapped. A cry tore from Adrian's wolf. Elara felt 8 years of love, pain, and memory collapse into silence. She pressed one hand to her chest. The emptiness hurt, but it belonged to her. "I forgive the man who finally told the truth," she said. I will not return to the king who made me beg for it. Adrian bowed his head. He did not ask again. That evening, the moon scribes gathered in the Hall of Two Crowns. Lycan Vane had challenged Elara's authority, claiming she no longer belonged to a sovereign territory, and therefore could not preside over the great trial. Cassian offered her permanent Night Vale asylum. No marriage required, he said before the witnesses. No oath, no bond. You may hold the Asterian seat under my protection and leave when the trial ends. Elara looked at the obsidian wedding band resting beside his royal seal. Then she looked at him. Would Night Vale accept a queen who does not kneel to its king? Cassian removed his sword. He placed it on the floor and lowered himself to one knee before her. Night Vale will accept no queen who is required to. The hall fell silent. Elara extended her hand. I choose the twin crown accord. Their palms were cut with separate blades. Their blood met only when Elara deliberately closed her hand around Cassian's. The chosen bond formed not like a chain tightening around her heart, but like a door opening. Cassian slid the obsidian band onto her finger. My wife, he said. My equal. Outside, Stormfang's war bells began to ring. The great doors slammed shut. Iron locks dropped into place from the other side. Then Serena's voice echoed through the sealed hall. The king has fallen. The traitor and her Lycan husband will die before sunrise. The iron locks crashed into place. Armed soldiers emerged from the upper galleries, their crossbows aimed at the moon scribes below. Most wore the black shoulder cords of General Rowan's former command. Serena stood on the balcony above the sealed doors. Lycan Vane appeared beside her, holding a council decree stamped with Adrian's stolen royal seal. Alpha Adrian has surrendered Stormfang to foreign influence, Vane announced. Elara Voss entered our capital with a Lycan king and used forbidden blood magic to seize authority. Cassian's claws lengthened. Outside the walls, hundreds of Lycan warriors waited for his command. Elara caught his wrist. If they enter now, Vane wins. Cassian looked down at her hand, then forced his wolf back. The soldiers expected a queen to hide behind her husband. Elara stepped into the center of the hall alone. Captain Hollis, she called. The officer commanding the eastern gallery stiffened. You served under General Rowan for 11 years. Recite the first line of his military oath. Hollis glanced toward Vane. Elara raised her voice. Stormfang steel shall never be turned against an unarmed child, healer, scribe, or lawful witness. Several soldiers lowered their crossbows. Vane's face tightened. She is no lawful witness. Elara lifted the Asterion seal. Silver light spread across the stone floor. House Asterion invoked the great trial under blood law, witnessed by every pack bell in this kingdom. Any soldier who prevents testimony violates Rowan's oath and forfeits the honor of his command. Hollis looked at the moon scribes, then at the children sheltering behind the council benches. He lowered his weapon. One by one, half the gallery followed. Serena's voice sharpened. Cowards. No, Elara said. They simply remember Rowan better than you do. The moon scribes moved quickly. A projection stone illuminated the first piece of evidence, the original security footage from Serena's chamber. The hall watched Adrian enter willingly. They watched him kiss Serena before drinking from the altered wine. Then they watched him collapse while a hooded healer drew blood from his arm. Serena pointed at the image. It proves Adrian betrayed her. Nothing more. It proves two truths, Elara replied. He made a choice before he was drugged. You committed a crime after he was. The second record appeared. An independent blood report confirmed Serena's unborn child carried Lycan Vane's bloodline. Shock broke through the remaining soldiers. Vane shouted, Forgery! Mara Quinn placed Elara's medical file beside the report. The medicine ledger showed Serena's household seal, authorizing the replacement of Elara's pregnancy treatment. The silver residue found in Elara's scar matched the metal recorded in Rowan's black war ledger. Cassian displayed the captured silver dagger. Its forge mark matched the weapons Vane had smuggled through Stormfang's military stores. Noah Reed entered through a service passage, his injured right arm bound against his chest. He placed his recording stone on the tribunal table. Serena's own voice filled the hall. Elara's poisoned medicine created the heir crisis. Rowan's death gave me the army. Rowan's officers turned toward their general's widow. For the first time, Serena looked afraid. You altered that recording. Then swear it, Elara said. A moon scribe carried the Luna ring forward. Its white stone pulsed faintly inside the glass case. Elara placed it on the tribunal altar. Under ancient law, the ring preserves the echo of royal oaths spoken in its presence. Put your blood on it and swear you never poisoned my medicine, betrayed Rowan, or falsified your child's bloodline. Serena descended the balcony stairs slowly. Every eye followed her. She cut her palm and touched the ring. I swear I am innocent. Blue fire erupted. Serena screamed as the oath echo thundered through the hall in her own voice, repeating the confession she had made to Vayne. The remaining soldiers dropped their weapons. Vayne drew a dagger and seized Serena by the throat. Before Cassian could move, Adrian stepped from behind the throne and struck Vayne's wrist hard enough to shatter bone. The counselor fell. Adrian faced the tribunal. I will testify. He removed the royal crown and placed it beside the Luna ring. I entered Serena's chamber willingly. I kissed her before I was drugged. Later, I ignored Elara's right to an investigation because I feared losing control of my army and throne. His gaze found Elara. My fear protected the people who poisoned her and killed our daughter. Silence filled the hall. Adrian lowered himself before the moon scribes. I surrender the Alpha King's crown. Let no one claim my testimony was given to preserve it. The locks were lifted. Vayne and Serena were bound in silver restraints. Cassian could have killed them where they stood. Instead, he waited for Elara. They will face judgment, she said, not vengeance. As the guards dragged Serena away, she began to laugh. You think you saved Stormfang? Elara turned. Serena's burned face twisted into one final smile. Vayne poisoned 3 of your wells. When the moon rises, every drop of water in this kingdom will turn to liquid silver. The moon would rise in 43 minutes. Elara stood over Stormfang's water map while chaos thundered beyond the Great Hall. 3 wells had been poisoned, but Serena did not know what Elara had built beneath the kingdom years ago. Close the northern and eastern channels, Elara ordered. Open the emergency reservoirs beneath the winter storehouses. A council officer stared at her. Those reservoirs were abandoned. No. Adrian rejected the expansion, so I completed it through the civilian defense budget. Adrian looked at her across the table. Another system she had built, while he was too occupied with power to ask how his kingdom survived. He turned toward the officers. You heard the queen. Elara's gaze sharpened. Adrian corrected himself immediately. You heard Lady Asterion. Obey her. The palace bells rang evacuation patterns, while guards raced through the streets. Pack members overturned market carts to block access to public fountains. Mothers carried children toward the high-ground shelters. Mara examined a vial drawn from the western well. Silver suspended in lunar salts, she said. Moonlight will activate it. Can it be neutralized? Moonroot charcoal will bind the metal, but we need more than Stormfang possesses. Cassian stepped toward the open window and released a roar that shook dust from the ceiling. Outside the walls, Nightvale answered. Lycan riders crossed the gates carrying sacks of charcoal from their battlefield medicine stores. Tessa directed them toward the filtration stations while Noah, his injured arm strapped to his chest, organized the southern districts. Adrian joined the workers at the northern reservoir. He did not command from a balcony. He lifted stone covers, carried contaminated barrels, and followed Elara's instructions without argument. When frightened wolves looked to him for reassurance, he pointed them toward her. For once, he understood that leadership did not always mean being the loudest voice. The moon touched the horizon as the final poisoned channel was sealed. Silver light flashed beneath the grates. Then the emergency reservoirs opened. Clean water rushed through Stormfang. A cheer rose from the streets, spreading from district to district until the entire kingdom seemed to breathe again. Elara closed her eyes. She had saved the people who once stood silent while her ring was taken, not because they deserved her pain, because she refused to let Serena decide what kind of woman that pain would create. The Moon Tribunal delivered its judgment at dawn. Lucien Vayne was stripped of his council seat, bloodline privileges, estates, and family crest. He was sentenced to the Dead Vault for treason, murder, and the corruption of royal law. Serena lost Widow Sanctuary the moment Rowan's blood memory proved her involvement in his death. She was convicted of poisoning Elara, falsifying the royal succession, conspiracy, and attempted mass murder. Her unborn child was declared innocent. After birth, the baby would be placed under the protection of the neutral Moon Sanctuary, beyond the control of Vane's family or any royal throne. Adrian surrendered the title of Alpha King. Noah Reed became interim Alpha until Stormfang could hold its first lawful election in generations. Adrian was permitted to remain as a border commander under tribunal oversight, with no authority over succession or Luna law. He accepted the judgment without protest. 6 months later, Elara returned to the memorial garden alone. Spring flowers covered the stone bearing her daughter's name. She removed the old Luna ring from a velvet pouch and placed it beneath the inscription. The moonstone no longer called to her. It was only metal, memory, and the remains of a life she had survived. Adrian waited near the white rose arch. He looked older without the crown, but more honest. "I heard the new Luna laws passed," he said. "They are not Luna laws. They protect every bonded partner." A faint, regretful smile touched his face. "Of course they do." He looked at the ring beside their daughter's memorial. "I am sorry." "I know." He did not ask whether she might return. That was the final proof that he had changed. "Thank you for saving Stormfang," he said. "Elara met his gaze." "I saved people who were once mine to protect. I did not save your throne." "I understand." This time, when she walked away, Adrian did not follow. Cassian waited beyond the garden gate with Tessa and 2 saddled horses. His copper-red eyes moved briefly toward the memorial, but he asked no questions. Elara was not ready to answer. Instead, he offered his hand. "What do you want to build next?" Elara looked toward the road leading to Nightvale. "A moon alliance, independent trials, elected councils, a law preventing any alpha from treating a mate bond as ownership." Tessa groaned. "I was hoping married life might convince both of you to take a holiday." Cassian's mouth curved. "My wife considers political reform a holiday." Elara laughed and placed her hand in his. The obsidian wedding band warmed against her skin. Cassian offered her his hand, not his command. Elara took it because the crown ahead of her required nothing of her dignity. And this is where Elara's story closes. Are you still here with me? Then perhaps you understood why her greatest victory was not marrying a more powerful king. It was the moment she stopped asking the man who betrayed her to recognize her worth. Elara was betrayed, misunderstood, and publicly replaced. She carried pain that no apology could erase. Yet she did not beg for love, fight for a title that had already been dishonored, or let anger decide who she became. She walked away because staying would have cost her dignity. That choice did not make the road painless. Leaving rarely does. Strength is not feeling nothing. It is accepting that we cannot control another person's loyalty, honesty, or regret, and choosing to control our own response. Adrian eventually understood what he had lost. But regret is not a time machine, no matter how useful that would be for certain Alpha Kings. Elara forgave without returning. She remembered without remaining trapped. Most importantly, she learned to choose herself again. If you believe dignity should never be traded for temporary love, write dignity in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, please leave a like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more stories of courage, truth, and second chances.